5 seconds to go. Start. So, it has to be considered whether it is relief in taxation which will lead to a reduction of unemployment or whether it is raising of taxation to the utmost levels which will dry up the resources and channels of capital formation and thereby not only retard all further development but might also through the functioning of present industries out of gear. Stop. So, my submission is that when the taxation inquiry committee has been appointed, it is only logical to expect that no substantial changes in the taxation structure will be made until the findings of that expert committee are known, until we know the incidence of taxation in the various sectors of our economy. Stop. Para. Now, coming to the question of deficit financing, I am afraid that my esteemed friend's attitude was somewhat different from the line of opinion in the business and industrial community. Stop. Note that we advocate deficit financing for bringing any artificial rise in prices, but the fact is that those who have criticized deficit financing have not suggested any other alternative, or made any other constructive suggestion which will bring about necessary development plans. Stop. After all, the fact has got to be faced that whatever program we have set out in the national plan should go on unimpeded by any financial considerations. Stop. An assurance has been given by the finance minister that so far as financial resources are concerned, he will ensure that the 5-year plan will not in any way be retarded. Stop. In this connection, I can only say that deficit financing is one thing so far as the revenue budget is concerned, so far as normal expenses and expenditure are concerned. Stop. Certainly, nobody would advocate deficit financing which might be very undesirable. Stop. But when it is a question of doing something abnormal, of investing something in productive channels, then certainly some risk has got to be taken, and I think the finance minister has been fully cautious in taking whatever measures he has, so far. Stop. Para. We know the measures that the government took for contracting money supply about the end of 1950 and certain other measures adopted which brought about a slump. Stop. Also, from time to time, the finance minister did not hesitate to mop up the surplus, which, as the records would show, has been about rupees 300 crores during the past 4 or 5 years. Stop. Para. I give a more glaring example of an electronic company, Weston, for instance. Stop. It registered itself as a small scale unit. Stop. But the amount it spends on publicity alone must be several times larger than the total investment of most of the small scale units. Stop. I will give one more instance of companies which are subsidiaries to big houses. Stop. There is a big list available. Stop. The minister himself must be knowing it. Stop. The government of India says that small scale undertakings which are subsidiaries or are owned or controlled by any other undertaking are not eligible for special concessions. Stop. Let the minister then identify those industries. Stop. The stock reply is colon. This is a matter within the purview of the state government. Stop. This information is not maintained by center. Stop. Let them not come forward with such replies. Stop. When I put a question, comma, a reply came that the information was not maintained by the center. Stop. This was the reply. Stop. Is the government in the dark, or do they want us to be in the dark? Sign of interrogation. In either case, comma, it is not good for the country. Stop. Government have more than 50% equity. Stop. We have private companies where government have more than 50% of equity, and their government has a definite and decisive say. Stop. Para. Sir, politics has always been defined as a system under which you determine you gets, comma, what, comma, how much and how. Stop. Politics is concerned with the distribution of assets, comma, resources and goods and services of the society. Stop. But politics in our country has been reduced to a game of competitive acquisition, and we politicians perhaps are very acquisitive animals. Stop. We are always confronting each other in order to get wealth, comma, very hopefully, comma, for our states, comma, for our regions, comma, for our communities, comma, a bigger share of the cake. Stop. Some sort of a struggle is essential, semicolon. Certain degree of competition ought to be there, semicolon. But when it is carried to a point where we start encroaching upon the legitimate aspirations of another region of our country, comma, then perhaps we give rise to a situation which does not augur well for harmony, to which my friend referred. Stop. Para. Sir, comma, we have two ways of looking at the problems that are with us today. Stop. One is of course, comma, to go into contemporary reality. Stop. The other is to take a conceptual view that what I imagine the commission has tried to do, comma, what is ought to be, comma, what is the pattern that we should proceed towards. Stop. Of course, comma, the real test will always be, comma, how we can change from the contemporary reality to that ideal which we are harping on. Stop. But the tendency that we find today, comma, whether it is the central government or the state governments, comma, the overall tendency over the last 50 years has been that every political party in our country and every political leader has been speaking in terms of decentralization or power, keeping in view that surrender is the ultimate test. Stop. But the actual fact, comma, we must admit that the trend has been towards centralization. Stop. More and more power and more functions have gone upwards even from the level of the local bodies or municipalities. Stop. The functions that we at one time carried out by panchayats, comma, they have all become concentrated into the hand what you call, comma, bureaucracy or the district administration or the state governments. Stop. In fact, comma, if I say so, comma, to a large extent, comma, many of those functions have also in effect been concentrated in the hands of the central government. Stop. There are ways of doing it. Stop. Some are blessed with favors and some are looked at with disfavor. Stop.